From the Edge Media Studios in downtown Indianapolis, this is Indiana Issues. Here's your host, Abdul-Hakim Shabazz.
Hello, and welcome to Indiana Issues, the monthly public affairs program. We go beyond the headlines and sound bites and bring you Indiana's newsmakers in their entirety. Well, it's halftime at the Indiana General Assembly. Lawmakers dealing with lots of issues, including property taxes, a state budget, and some controversial cultural issues as well. And join us today on the program to talk about those issues and a couple other things as well is our good friends, Republican Jim Merritt, Democrat Arielle Brandy, and Independent and the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce, Brad Klopfenstein. So Arielle, Jim, Brad, thank you all very much for being with us. Let's start talking about what's going on at halftime at the Indiana General Assembly. Lawmakers working on a budget, but there are some issues about whether charter schools. They're dealing with some controversial cultural issues, also expanding mental health care access to a lot of Hoosiers. So, Jim, how would you rate your former colleagues? We'll start with you.
Well, they're going to pass a budget, and so I give them an A. That's really the solid issue of this session, as you said. I think Indiana can be a very unhealthy state, and they're trying to assess the mental health aspect along with the health, which should be together, because if you have a broken brain, you've got the same thing as a broken bone. And so I think they're doing very well. They've had some hiccups along the way, but they're going to get a budget done. And if you recall the last session, they were trying to do maps and all different sorts of things. And so I think they're doing well right now.
Arielle, let's get your thoughts. How do you think lawmakers are doing so far at the halfway point?
Yeah, well, I will say Democrats are in a good position, and I give them an A. We've seen a lot of our incoming freshman legislators get a lot of their bills passed unanimously through the House, specifically Representative Victoria Garcia-Wilburn. Obviously, her work that she's been doing, specifically, as Jim mentioned, mental health for our EMTs and our firefighters. But also, too, we have Senator Shelley Yoder, who's really killing it. Obviously, not a freshman, but she's really passing some really good bills in regards to contraceptives. I think Democrats right now are really focused on what Hoosiers are wanting. And as we're seeing, the GOP has, for me, gotten an F rating because we're back to the social issues and attacking each other and banning any and everything that we can. So right now, I would say Dems are getting an A. They're doing a great job, really focused on what Hoosiers want. And unfortunately, Jim, the GOP just not doing it for me once again.
Thank you. Brad, Mr. Klopfenstein, how would you rate lawmakers so far this session, going into session at the halfway point?
Well, apparently I'm going to split the difference because I'd written down that they're getting a C. I agree with Jim. They're going to pass a budget, which they statutorily have to do. However, they're definitely getting bogged down in social issues, like Arielle mentioned. And I mean, ultimately, that's a problem. And that also says that they've solved all the other issues in Indiana. So let's see how many books we can ban. It's not good. I wish the Republicans would stop that. They have an opportunity, especially with a supermajority in both chambers, to really be visionary and accomplish some things. Heck, it's no wonder that Senator Andy Zay has decided to run for U.S. Congress. I mean, if a man can't get a bill passed that makes the breaded tenderloin the official sandwich in Indiana, what's the point of being in the legislature?
Oh, gosh, you're absolutely right, my friend. Jim, let me start with you. I'll go back to you because obviously when we'll get to some of the more controversial cultural issues in just a second. I want to go back to the budget itself. It seems like whether for the most part, you're right, the budget will be balanced and it'll have lots of stuff in there. But it seems a little bit of consternation between expanding the school voucher program. Republicans in the House expanded the school voucher program, so now a family of four that makes under up to $220,000 is eligible for a voucher. The Senate had some problems with that. You had Ryan Mischer holding up a voucher bill over some issues he had up north in his neck of the woods. Is this something lawmakers can work out?
Oh, yeah, I think it will. I think the Republican caucus itself is very much for choice in schools and vouchers. And you've seen that in the past in the House and the Senate Republican caucus. I think there will be a way Senator Mischer will solve this issue. And we're seeing Arizona, we're seeing Iowa and other states who are really going full bore into the school choice issue. And I don't think we'll get there in Indiana, but we're darn close, and we're in the top 5 or 6 for choice in schools when you compare it to other states. And they'll get there. They'll get there. Senator Mitchell has some issues, and they will be worked out. They will be worked out.
Arielle, your thoughts on it seems like the school choice shift that the House and Senate will be going through this session?
Yeah, I mean, obviously right now when we're focusing on education, a lot of the issues aside from vouchers were also partisan school boards. I'm very happy to see that bill is now dead and we don't have to focus on that anymore. And we can really get into the real issues that teachers are clearly showing up at the State House time and time again for. And that's a rise in their pay, being able to pay for the things that they need for their classrooms and for our public education. We're not seeing that happen. And so instead, what we're seeing is this controversial talk about vouchers and anti-choice. And instead, we're wanting to equip our teachers with guns and get into issues like that instead of really focusing on what educators are wanting right now. And I feel like it's something they've been rallying at the State House for some time now. And obviously, our supermajority still is just not getting it right.
Brad, I want to follow up on something that Arielle just talked about, the partisan school board bill, which didn't get out of committee, which ended up dying on the House floor. But technically, I remind folks, nothing is dead until sine die. Just a little reminder, because some things can always have a way to come back and sort of resurface themselves. But one thing, Brad, about this whole concept of a partisan school board, because to me, the issues that people have with school boards seem more local, geographical than it was Republican or Democrat.
I would agree with that. Thank goodness it's dead for now. Teaching our kids are not partisan issues. Republicans don't do a better job than Democrats. And as a community, we've all got to figure out what is best for kids and how are we going to teach those kids. And I think when you get partisan politics involved, you get a lot of people who will blindly pull a lever. And we already have a hard enough time getting people to pay attention to school board races. I fear that they would pay even less attention if that would happen. And then I want to touch on the vouchers just a little bit.
Sure.
I'm not wholly opposed to school choice. However, if somebody takes a voucher, they have to be willing to take all kids. And I think that's the big sticking point. We seem to have two factions here. You've got Republicans that are wanting to give vouchers to people who are actively involved in their kids' education, but it does not address the issue of the parents who are not actively involved in their kids' education. If you take vouchers, you need to be able to take all kids, and you can't cherry pick the smart ones. You can't cherry pick the healthy ones. And if you're taking vouchers, which is public money, you have to be willing to take kids with special needs.
Jim, I want to circle back on
Abdul.
Sure,
Yeah,
Jim,
let me push back on the partisanship of school board and elections. They are partisan now. If you look in the numbers, IPACE, the Political Action Committee for the ICA, they are funding 15 to 20 races, and then the parent packs are being started and created, and so they're partisan anyway. And so why don't we get back to the May primary with Republicans, Democrats, and Libertarians, so that you have a full vetting of the issues, as well as if there's a vacancy on the school board itself. Right now, they are by law caucusing to invite anybody they want onto the school board, and I find that very anti-democratic. And so this works both Republican and Democrat. It slices both ways. But the reason why the bill failed, I think, is that this is a central Indiana. This is an urban versus rural issue. Urban, that many parents have found that they don't like what is going on in their schools, and they've come to the school board and not gotten satisfaction. Now that maybe that's happening in rural Indiana. I don't think so. And so the bill was watered down and was pretty much worthless, and that's why it failed. But I strongly believe that in fact, I think it was a mistake for me to vote 12 years ago to change, because I think the more we have campaigns, more we know our school board, the better off we are. And right now, it's really just teachers. You look at the numbers, and the IPACE gives $2,400 to a endorsed a candidate, and then $1,800 more if they need more. And you can run a school board race on $5,000. And so either we got to stop the funding of the campaigns and make them totally, maybe even an appointment. But I see that's a real problem right now with people being able to have a voice in the issue itself.
Our guest on the program today, and by the way, you're watching Indiana Issues, the monthly television program. We go beyond the headlines and sound bites and bring you Indiana's newsmakers in their entirety. Our guests today on the program are Republican Jim Merritt, Democrat Arielle, Brandy, and Independent Lawrence Chamber of Commerce Chairman, a good friend Brad Klopfenstein. One thing, Arielle, I want to switch over to you real quick here. One thing that seems to get a lot of overwhelming support is the lawmakers' initiatives to give more access to mental health. Particularly jails, because we know that jails have unfortunately become our biggest sort of mental health facilities in the state of Indiana. Your thoughts what lawmakers did with mental health or what they're doing with mental health right now?
I mean, I'm glad that we're shifting our focus back to that. I think it's something that obviously Democrats have been calling for a while. But also, too, if you look back at the governor's State of the State address, he made it a priority when he talked about the things that we needed to focus on. And mental health issues have always been one of the top things that we have heard the governor speak about. So seeing so many of our legislators really put this at the forefront, I think is really promising. And it's way past time for us to make sure that those who are going to be on the front lines for us are also getting the services that they need. Now, when it comes to our jails and when we're looking at rehabilitation as a whole, obviously, we've seen that sometimes this is the only place where people will be able to have any kind of services sometimes to be able to get those kind of mental health treatment that they need. But the fact that we're actually making it a priority, I think is only going to make it better for us. I was very happy to see that obviously, Democrats were able to get those types of bills passed unanimously because it shows the bipartisanship and everyone wanting to be united behind those issues. I wish we could see more of that in the legislature as we're moving forward, if we can unite behind these issues that we know are important to Hoosiers. So I am very grateful that we are going to be putting the money and the resources towards that, because I want to be sure that the people who are going to be helping save my life, if I ever needed it, are also being taken care of in the same way, and they're be able to have the services that they need.
Brad, your thoughts on what lawmakers are doing in the area of mental health? Because I know you're married to a teacher. Mental health is a big deal for her.
Certainly. And I think that all three of your panelists here were probably all pretty much agreed on this. Certainly from a classroom standpoint, mental health and just behavioral health, that seems to be the biggest deterrent to educating kids in the classroom as a whole. There's typically one or two children that the others do or have other special needs that need addressed, and they can disrupt an entire classroom. And I think getting them the services they need is probably going to help both those kids that have the special needs as well as the other kids that are in that classroom. And this goes all the way through. Arielle mentioned that it helps with incarceration. I mean, our jails, there needs to be a difference between what is a mental health issue and what is a criminal issue. Right now, they're all being housed together, and we're not doing a service to either. Mental health needs to be at the forefront, and I think that that's going to solve a lot of issues, including homelessness.
Jim, one issue that did not get very far this session is the issue of legalized marijuana. Lots of bills. The House actually had a hearing on decriminalization. What do you think is going to happen, or is it just sort of, hey, we had a hearing, or is this going to be baby steps?
Just baby steps, Abdul, and it's got to happen. It's here now. We don't know what's in it, meaning the material of cannabis. It's terrific in an industrial setting with hemp and manufacturing. It's on its way. We need the standards. We need to know what's in it and how it's being sold and how it's being delivered. And that's a large issue that's going to take a couple of years for the state of Indiana. And by that time, it's possible the federal government will have legalized or regulated. I like to talk about regulating it so that we know what's being sold, we know what's in it, and we know it's here. On the mental health side, Abdul, I think we're all in agreement. I think this is just the start of an overhaul of the Department of Correction in the way of a culture change from warehousing human beings to get into a transitional healthcare and making sure that human beings that have given done their time and they're leaving DOC, that they're ready for the outside, because they'll be safer and we'll be safer. And the idea of reoffending will slowly go away if we do our job in changing the culture of incarceration. And also 988 with the suicide hotline, funding it, And spending probably 80 to $90 million on healthcare outreach is so very important. And I think the legislature's really gotten the clarion call, and I think that's going to get done this year.
You're watching Indiana Issues, the monthly television program. We look at the Indiana General Assembly and other issues facing the state of Indiana. When we come back, we'll see what's going to be happening with property taxes, as property tax bills are going to be hitting really hard, and teachers rally at the State House as well. And we'll also get our panel's predictions and prognostications. You're watching Indiana Issues. I'm Abdul-Hakim Shabazz, the editor and publisher of IndyPolitics.org. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Indiana Issues. I'm your host, Abdul-Hakim Shabazz, the editor and publisher of IndyPolitics.org. Today, we're looking at issues at the Indiana General Assembly during halftime. Our guests on our panel today are Republican Jim Merritt, Democrat Arielle Brandy, and independent voter Brad Klopfenstein, who's also head of the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce. Well, my friends, Hoosiers can expect to see their property tax bills soon, and many of them are getting ready for a lot of sticker shock with assessments through the roof. That means property taxes bills are probably going to be through the roof. Lawmakers are trying to find a solution, but there's an issue of timing because the taxes come out as lawmakers get ready to wrap up session. Jim, what's going on here, my friend?
Well, when the legislature went to special session last year, they should have taken Senator Holdman's idea of having a tax commission and really looking at all taxes in the state of Indiana. And it's about anticipation. It's about, I like saying, seeing in front of your headlights, where you're get an idea of what's happening in the future, in the near future, and starting to solve this issue that is coming right at us in May. And I'm not sure what they can do. Maybe a temporary homestead credit that could be on their state taxes next year. I don't think in fact, I know you can't change the May tax bill right now. Maybe you could change the November one. But bottom line is there is going to be sticker shock. And I don't know if this would have been preventable, but it would have been sure nice if when they went to special session last summer, if they would have dealt with this, because we've all known for the last year or so that this is coming.
Arielle, let me ask you, as a Democrat, what do you think the legislature could have done or should have done with respect to property taxes to mitigate some of Hoosiers' bills that are coming in just a couple of weeks?
Well, I think first is making it a priority that we address the housing issue that we have here in Indiana. I think that we have tried to in the past, but we've been so bogged down with these social issues that we've missed the opportunity that Hoosiers are spending 72% of their income on housing. And as someone who is renting and wanting to hopefully buy, I'm really concerned about how this impact is going to be on me specifically as a young woman of color trying to buy. We know the hurdles that come with trying to get affordable housing, specifically in the state of Indiana. These taxes are going to have an impact on the communities that are still the most vulnerable in our state. And so I think what we should have done is, as Jim mentioned, we should have been able to put together a committee to really focus on this in the summer. We are missing a missed opportunity for housing to now become an even worse issue than what it is here in the state of Indiana. And those populations that actually need to feel some kind of relief are unfortunately not going to get that. And so I really don't know where we go with this moving forward, but I know that it's going to have a deep impact on so many of the populations that need to be able to feel some kind of relief. They're just not going to get it this time around.
Brad, let me ask you, I want to get your thoughts, not so much on property taxes per se, but just the situation we're in and the fact that the bills come out this spring, right around the primary time, and then in November, right around the general election time, and it's local governments that are going to be on the ballot, and property taxes, for the most part, are creatures of local government.
Brother, it's going to be an interesting year. I know just me personally, my overall mortgage payment went up almost 20%, and it was all because of a property tax increase. I might be somewhat atypical, but I don't think I'm too far out of the boundaries of what is normal. When those start coming due, people are going to hit the roof, and they're going to blame anybody and everyone that is on the ballot at the time. And if you're an incumbent, heaven help you, because they're going to hold you accountable whether or not your office is responsible or not. I also have a bit of a warning to the school systems out there and local government. You might get a one-time influx of cash coming up right now. Be very careful and don't adjust how you're operating and think that this is going to be an ever-going stream of money, because you're going to be sorely mistaken if you suddenly add a whole bunch of staff and ongoing expenses, and you're not going to have an ability to pay for that in 2 years, because I think it will get fixed, but who fixes it and who's held accountable for it are going to be big issues to watch.
You're watching Indiana Issues. I'm your host, Abdul-Hakim, the editor and publisher of IndianaPolitics.org, where we look at the issues of the day facing Hoosiers across the state of Indiana. I want to go back to the legislature, folks. As we saw the teachers rallied recently to protest charter schools, to protest the school voucher system. But it seems like even though teachers have protested, and Arielle, I want to start with you, it seems like the legislature doesn't change all that much. Remember the big statehouse rally we had a couple years ago over teacher pay? Nothing really changed. We had a governor's commission report, but nothing's really changed with respect to teacher pay. So what's the point? I guess is my question.
I mean, when it comes to pay in this state, we are just not doing what we need to do. We haven't even raised our minimum wage since like 2008. So how do we expect our supermajority to make teachers a priority and give them the raises that they deserve? And I think that we're doing a disservice to them, because we obviously know that the state of Indiana is in a very bad teacher shortage. I mean, this is all across the country. When the pandemic came and pretty much, I would like to say, tore apart what our education system was currently at that time functioning as, we saw so many teachers leaving, not only for the lack of resources and services that they weren't getting, but it also became hard on the students too. So it's not just impacting our educators, it's also impacting the children that they're trying to teach. And so until we make teachers a priority so that they can actually live in this state, have proper housing, get the healthcare needs that they deserve, and not have to focus so much on outing the kids in their classroom, I think we as a state are doing a disservice to our educators, and we really need to make them a top priority. Raising teacher pay needs to be something we need to do moving forward. I might be a little biased because I have a lot of friends in the education system, but I see what they're going through. I'm also a school-age mom. I care about the teachers that are teaching my children, making sure that they're okay too, because then guess what? My kids come back home and they're pretty upset when their teacher's not in a good mood, because one, they probably couldn't pay for something, or they're probably going through some stuff where those lack of resources that we aren't giving them is impacting their daily, everyday lives. And so I think it's very important that we make it a priority.
Jim, another issue in education has been this issue of textbook fees. The governor in his State of the State address, sorry about that, basically said, hey, we want to get rid of textbook fees so students no longer charge for textbooks or the curriculum fees. Looks like the House agreed, but there was something weird in there, because it just basically said that the parents no longer have to pay the textbook fees, but school districts still do.
Yeah, it's kind of convoluted, and hopefully the Senate will clean that up a little bit. Abdul, I don't understand that logic. I've always been for the idea of parents not paying for the books, for the school books, and school books. The idea of them is changed so much since we have iPads and whatnot. This is just another expense that we need to make a part of the school funding formula, and make it a local decision on what is actually taught. And if you had a school board that is supported by everyone, then you could have a local decision in that regard. And so I don't understand the reasoning behind that caveat in the legislation. I would expect the Senate probably to look at that very hard and possibly delete it or amend it out. But Arielle is correct. Teachers have to be held high. Educators have to have a great position in our society and be honored. But we have, and there was a big time report, big time commission, and we didn't reach how much the teachers are paid on their directive or their suggestions. But Indiana is on an ongoing quest to increase teachers' pay, and I think you're going to see a lot of money in the school funding formula, and hopefully some designated exactly for teacher pay. But the other side of it is you want that superintendent and that school board to have local control on what they're going to pay their teachers. So it's kind of a slippery slope, or whatever you want to call it. Teacher pay will always be an issue because we need the very best coming into the classroom.
Brad, let me get your thoughts, particularly on teacher pay. Because obviously, full disclosure, Brad's married to a teacher, very nice teacher too, by the way. But also this whole thing on textbook fees, that parents and students will no longer have to pay the textbook fee, but it looks like the schools have to pick up the tab.
So schools should pick up the tab. I mean, it's just part of public education. I would like to take issue with what Arielle was saying earlier, that this is all about teacher pay. This is not all about teacher pay. It is working conditions is more of the issue. And I think that's what teachers are rallying for. It's conditions in the classroom. It's teachers are leaving the profession, not because they go to a higher paying job. It's because they go to some place where they're not assaulted every day by students. We've got to get a handle on discipline in the classroom. We've got to get a handle on the resources that are going into the classroom, and that includes teachers' aides. So we don't necessarily need to increase teacher pay for one, but maybe getting a second person in that classroom that can help out. I think we also probably need to address the amount of money that's going to administration. Sorry, administrators out there, but administration salaries have just exploded really over the last 15 or 20 years. That is money that's not going to directly teach kids. I don't think teachers need any more directives coming from central office. What they need is the ability to teach and to be allowed to go out and teach kids.
You're watching Indiana Issues. I'm Abdul-Hakim, the editor and publisher of IndyPolitics.org. Well, now we come to the part of our program where we ask our panelists to look into their crystal balls and see what is in the political ether going forward. Jim Merritt, we'll start with you, my friend.
I think we're going to have a low turnout in the May primary in Marion County and everywhere around the state. And not too many people are going to show up in November as well. And the other idea that I had was reimbursement rates for Medicaid. I certainly hope and I expect the legislature to up those reimbursements, because they have not been addressed for a long time. And I think it's time.
Arielle, what are your thoughts? What are your predictions? What do you see coming down the road?
Yeah, well, I will say here in my county, I'm in St. Joseph County, South Bend, Indiana. We got some heated primaries going on right now. So I'm hoping that here in our county, we'll see a higher turnout and really see some successes on the Democrat side. But I agree with Jim. I'm worried about the rest of the state. This has been probably one of the quietest municipal years that I've probably seen in my career. And so I'm a little scared to see what ends up happening. But I'm excited for these races to see how they pan out. I just want people to vote, participate in democracy and in the process. We got to get these numbers out. We can't continue to be last.
Brad Klopfenstein, my friend, I give you the last word.
Here, Arielle. Everybody needs to get involved, know what the issues are, know who the candidates are, explore what those issues are. I think we will see more engagement, largely because of the property tax issue. I do think that schools will continue to be a driver on a lot of the discussion points that are out there. Unfortunately, I don't see the legislature doing a whole lot more and getting out in front of a lot of issues. They've got an opportunity to improve our roads, fix our infrastructure, make Indiana a better place for business. I just don't see them doing that.
All right. Well, our guests in the program today have been Republican Jim Merritt, Democrat Arielle Brandy, and independent voter and head of the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce, Brad Klopfenstein. My friends, as always, thank you all very, very much for being with us today. And by the way, thank you all for joining us live. Well, not live. We'll record it now from the Edge Media Studios in downtown Indianapolis. I'm Abdul-Hakim. You've been watching Indiana Issues. We'll talk to you next month. Take care. Bye-bye.